Assuredly, I say to you, that there are some standing here who had not tasted death till they see the kingdom of God present with power.
All right, now when you see that verse 1 and 9, remember I told you the other day that when the Bible was originally composed, that there were no chapters and there were no verses. When the Bible was presented, there was no chapters and verses. The chapter and verses process only came out of the fact when the Gutenberg printing press of the Bible was able to be reprinted in mass numbers and distribution. And so there was a Catholic priest sometime after that period that came up with this notion of chapters and verses. So chapters and verses have only been around about 400 years to help the audience in the group kind of reference and study together. And so I'm saying that to say, sometimes we think that when we see chapter 9, a new clause is beginning, a new subject is beginning, a new thought is beginning, and there was not any chapters. And so it's not necessarily a new thought and a new clause and things like that. And so this particular verse is definitely part of chapter 8. It's definitely, to make sense of that one, verse 1 and verse 2 are not the same verse. They don't go together. They're not telling that same story together. So verse 1 is not necessarily setting up verse 2. And sometimes when we're reading the Bible, if we're not careful, we'll think because it's a chapter that everything in that chapter conveys one thought. And then when I get to the next chapter, there's a whole new thought. And that's not really how the Bible is written, how the Bible operates. And so this thought concludes what the thought from verse 31 on now, and that's the thought when Jesus was predicting his death, he was foretelling his death, and as we talked about in the last study, Jesus did not speak openly about his death until the disciples realized who he was, and they had full understanding. Some say you're John the Baptist, some say you're Elijah. Who do you say that I am? I say that thou art the Christ, the Son of God. And so it was after Revelation that Jesus began to openly share with them some of the horrible and horrific and unsightly things that he would go through. And verse 1 concludes that. So we're going to go back and read verse 1 of 9, and then Jason's going to continue verse 2. I hope they helped you a little bit.
And he said to them, Assuredly, I say to you, that there are some standing here who will not taste death till they see the kingdom of God present with power. Now after 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John, and led them up on a high mountain apart by themselves. And he was transfigured before them.
All right, a couple things here. All right, in Matthew it says 8 days, in this chapter it says 6 days. And so you want to kind of cross-reference some things that are going on. In that resource that God had put together, Life's Blueprint, you'll see 40 miracles recorded there. And in those 40 miracles, if the editor did it right, but in those 40 miracles, it'll show you that this lesson is also illustrated over here. And so it's very important to kind of compare and contrast the different reports and putting them together. They're never competing with each other. They're just giving a different viewpoint. We are all in the same room, would you agree? And I see a red wall. Do you see a red wall when you look forward? When you look forward, what color wall do you see? Well, I see a red wall. So is that a contradiction? No, it's just a different viewpoint. That wall is actually red there. That wall is actually black here. And when we put that together, we understand that the wall was shaded in some kind of hue of black and red in some kind of fashion. And so there's no comparison. There's no disconnect there. There's no contradiction there. There are different viewpoints from which the story is told. And so, and that's why I always encourage people to get a study Bible. Because if you have a Bible app or if you have a basic verse Bible, like Curtis has there, which is great, but sometimes you don't know that this story is also, or this history is also recorded over here from a different viewpoint. And if you knew that, then you can quickly read it and get a fuller understanding of what's going on there. Does that make sense? Right, the other thing I want you to see is that there has, even in the visionary earthly ministry of Jesus, there are always a core group. There there are always, and when I say a faithful few in this sense, I'm not talking about a faithful few that chooses to do, a faithful few that chooses to tithe. Well, I don't mean it from that perspective. But I'm talking about a few that God has set aside. He has decided to set aside to do something great. And so it's not about paying your tithe, because what God may have for you to do is bigger than that. It's not about showing up on Thursday. God might not want you to show up on Thursday. He might want you to teach on Thursday. It's not about showing up for a service on Sunday. God may want you to expand the service on Tuesday in a whole different region of the city. And so there are certain individuals that He has already decided. There are some that are not even present. There are some that don't even know about City Faith Church. But it's what He has decided. He did not choose Peter, James, and John because of Peter, James, and John. It's His sovereign ability to choose. It's His wisdom. And He has decided for these three individuals to play a most special role in the life of the church for this season. See, the church is continuing from then to now. There's no breakage. There's a continuation. And He has chosen me, and He's chosen you to play a special role. Peter is not here anymore. James is not here anymore. John is not here anymore. And so He's chosen a new group in this new season to do a special work. And amongst that group, He often calls out a few. And so I want you to understand that if you are the one, or the ones that He's called out to be peculiar, never compare yourself to the group. Because you'll always be somewhere where the group is not. You'll always be somewhere spiritually where the group is not. You'll be higher and the group is not. You might be the only one who read the lesson and studied the lesson, and no one else in the group studied and read the lesson. And it's okay to be peculiar. And so as we grow as a church, as we mature as a church, I just want a few people to understand that God may have chosen you to be special within this context that we call City Faith Church. Does that make sense? So special. So these particular individuals, Peter, James, and John, they were part of that inner group